In January of 2021, I was finishing my shift at the veterinary clinic outside Bemidji, northern Minnesota. Winter there doesn't negotiate. It imposes itself on everything you do, every decision you make, every risk you calculate. That evening I stayed late because a dog had come in with a laceration that needed careful stitching. The owner was a single mother with 2 kids in the waiting room, and I could see the worry carved into her face. I told her we'd take care of it, no rush. By the time I walked the family out and locked up, the sky had turned that particular shade of gray that means trouble. The parking lot was empty, except for my truck. Snow was already falling in thick, lazy spirals under the floodlights. I checked my phone. Weather alert, blizzard warning in effect until 6 a.m. Heavy accumulation expected, travel not advised. I stood there reading it twice, feeling the cold work its way through my coat. My apartment was 18 miles away on County Road 7, a 2-lane stretch that got plowed maybe once every 4 hours if you were lucky. I told myself I'd driven worse. I had an emergency kit in the back, blankets, flares, water, granola bars. I wasn't stupid about winter. I'd grown up here. I climbed in, started the engine, let it warm while I scraped the windshield clean. The defroster blasted hot air that smelled faintly of burnt dust. I pulled out onto the main road feeling cautious but not afraid. The first 5 miles were manageable. Traffic was light, just a few other vehicles creeping along with their hazards flashing. The snow thickened gradually, visibility compressing from a quarter mile to maybe 100 yards. My headlights caught the flakes swirling in chaotic patterns, hypnotic if you stared too long. I kept both hands locked on the wheel, checking my mirrors every few seconds. The road was slick but not impossible. I stayed in the right lane, gave myself space. Calm, steady, predictable. That's how you survive winter here. You respect it without panicking. Then the highway emptied. One by one, the other vehicles turned off or disappeared behind me. By the time I reached County Road 7, I was alone. The snowfall intensified.
What had been thick became blinding. The world shrank to the narrow tunnel of my headlights and the white static beyond. The road beneath me became a guess. I slowed to 30, then 20. My phone buzzed with a text from my roommate. "You good?" I didn't answer. Eyes on the road, both hands steady. The wind picked up, shoving the truck sideways in gusts. I corrected again. My jaw was clenched so tight it ached. It happened fast and slow at the same time. A patch of ice hidden under fresh snow. The back end kicked out. I turned into the skid like I'd been taught, but the road had other plans. The truck slid right, tires useless, and the front end nosed into the shallow drainage ditch with a muffled crunch. Not violent, just final. The engine was still running. The wipers kept beating back and forth. Snow piled up on the hood in seconds. I sat there, breathing hard, hands still gripping the wheel, trying to assess. No airbag deployment, no pain, just stuck. I shifted into reverse and pressed the gas. The tires whined and spun. Rocking it forward and back only dug deeper. The smell of burning rubber seeped into the cab. I stopped, turned off the engine, and sat in the sudden quiet. The wind howled outside. Snow pattered against the windows. My phone showed 2 bars. I called 911. It rang 4 times and dropped. I tried again. Same result. I texted my roommate my location with a dropped pin and watched the message sit there unsent, the little loading circle spinning uselessly. Then the screen flickered. 1 bar. No signal. I pulled my coat tighter and tried to think. I had maybe 3 hours of gas if I ran the engine intermittently for heat. Someone would come eventually. A plow, a patrol car, someone. I just had to wait. Stay calm. Stay warm. 20 minutes passed, maybe 30. Time felt elastic. Then I saw lights in the rearview mirror. Not headlights. Amber rotating lights, bright and steady, cutting through the snow. A vehicle moving slow and deliberate. A utility truck, maybe county maintenance. The lights filled my cab with warm orange pulses. Relief flooded through me so fast it made me dizzy. Help. Actual help.
The truck pulled up behind me at an angle, blocking some of the wind. The engine idled low and heavy. A figure climbed out, bulky in a high-visibility jacket and insulated pants. Boots crunched through the snow toward my driver's side window. I cracked it open. Cold air knifed in. "You okay in there?" The voice was male, youngish, steady. He had a reflective beanie pulled low, a scarf covering the lower half of his face. His eyes were shadowed but visible. He looked like exactly what I needed him to be. "I'm stuck," I said. "Slid off about half an hour ago." He nodded. "Roads are bad. Real bad. You got heat? For now. I've got gas. Cell service? Nothing. He looked back toward his truck, then at me again. I've got a winch. Might be able to pull you out, but not in this wind. Too dangerous. You should sit in my cab while I assess. Warm up properly. You're already shaking. I hadn't realized I was, but he was right. My hands were trembling. I'm okay here, I said. Company policy, he said, cutting me off gently. Can't leave someone outside in conditions like this. Liability issue, you understand? That word, policy. It sounded official, reasonable, safe. I hesitated. Something whispered at the back of my mind, a faint alarm I couldn't name. But the cold was real, the isolation was real, and he looked like help. Okay, I said. Let me grab my stuff. I took my phone, my keys, my bag, stepped out into the storm. The cold hit like a physical blow. Snow immediately coated my hair, my shoulders. The wind shoved me sideways. His truck was only 10 feet away, but it felt like crossing a football field. He opened the passenger door. Heat poured out, thick and overwhelming. I climbed in. The cab smelled like coffee and diesel and something faintly sweet I couldn't place. The heater roared. I pulled the door shut, and the wind disappeared. For maybe 10 seconds, I felt safe. Then he climbed into the driver's seat and shut his door. I heard the locks engage, both doors. Click, click. Definite, mechanical. He didn't look at me when he did it. He adjusted his mirrors, pulled off his gloves, unwound his scarf. Underneath, his face was plain, forgettable.
Mid-30s, maybe. No expression. Where were you headed? He asked. Home. Bemidji. Long drive. He glanced at me. You live alone? I paused. No, I have a roommate. Boyfriend? Roommate, I repeated. Why? He shrugged. Just making conversation. Long night. Skin crawl. I pulled out my phone, checked for signal. Nothing. I started typing a text anyway, just to look busy, to have something to do with my hands. He noticed immediately. You're not going to get a signal out here, he said. You're wasting your battery. It's fine, I said, keeping my voice neutral. Every word I spoke felt like walking on ice, testing for cracks. Suit yourself. He shifted in his seat, angling slightly toward me. The movement was casual but deliberate. He was closing the space between us incrementally. You married? Why does that matter? Curious. He glanced at my hand. No ring. I'd never worn one. My grandmother's ring sat in a jewelry box at home, too precious to risk at work where I scrub my hands 50 times a day. Long way to drive alone in weather like this. Dangerous. I'm aware. People make bad decisions when they panic, he continued, as if I hadn't spoken. His tone was conversational, almost gentle. That made it worse somehow. Get themselves into situations, then they need help, real help. But by the time they realize what kind of help they actually need, it's often too late. You understand what I mean? I didn't answer. I kept my eyes forward, watching the snow accumulate on the windshield, each flake adding to the layer that was slowly sealing us in. You seem smart though, he said. Practical. I like that. Some people fight reality. They scream, they cry, they make things harder than they need to be. But you're not like that, are you? I looked at him fully then. His expression hadn't changed. Calm, pleasant, but his eyes were watching me with an intensity that didn't match his tone.
They were studying me the way I studied animals before sedation, calculating dosage based on weight and temperament, measuring, assessing. I appreciate you stopping, I said carefully, each word chosen with precision. But I should probably try to call someone again. My roommate will be worried. You said you don't have signal. Maybe I will now. Signals fluctuate. You won't. He said it flatly. Not a guess, not an assumption. The certainty in his voice landed wrong. Not a guess, a statement of fact. Like he'd checked, like he knew. I glanced toward the door handle. Locked. The little knob was pressed down, secured. I looked at the dashboard. He'd removed the key from the ignition and pocketed it. My pulse kicked up, a steady drum building in my ears. Why did you lock the doors? I asked. Keeps the heat in, he said. Keeps the cold out. Wind is brutal tonight. Unlock them. Why? He tilted his head, studying me like I was a specimen under glass. You're not going anywhere. Your truck is stuck. There's no signal, no traffic. The next plow won't come through for hours, if all tonight. And even if you walked, you'd be hypothermic in 20 minutes. You need me more than I need you, so let's not pretend you have options here. That's when I knew. Not suspected, not worried. Knew. This wasn't help. This was something else entirely. This was predation. I forced myself to breathe slowly.
Panic makes you stupid. I dealt with aggressive dogs, animals in pain lashing out. You don't escalate, you assess. I need to get back to my truck, I said. I left something. What? My medication. He studied me. What kind? Insulin. A lie, but specific. Medical. You don't look diabetic. Type 1. I keep it cold. It's in my truck. He didn't move. You're lying. I'm not. Yes, you are. He leaned back, almost relaxed. You're scared. That's okay. Most people are, at first. It's natural. Unlock the doors. Not yet. I'll scream. Go ahead. He gestured at the windshield. The snow was a solid white curtain. There's no one out here. No one for miles. That's the whole point. My throat tightened.
I looked around the cab more carefully. No radio, no company logo on the visor. The jacket he'd been wearing was generic, the kind you could buy at any hardware store. The truck itself, I glanced at the dashboard, was older. No GPS, no fleet tracking sticker. This isn't a county truck, I said. No. You're not a maintenance worker? No. He said it so calmly, like we were discussing the weather. My hand started shaking again, not from cold this time. I needed leverage, something to shift the dynamic. My eyes scanned the cab systematically, the way I'd been trained to assess an exam room for potential hazards. Coffee thermos in the center console, still steaming. Flashlight clipped to the door panel. Papers shoved into the side pocket, edges visible. Fast food wrappers on the floor, a coat thrown across the back seat. And then I saw it. A phone. Not mine. His. Sitting in the cup holder near the gear shift. Screen dark but visible. Newer model. Definitely not a burner. You said I wouldn't get signal, I said slowly, each word deliberate. But you have a phone. I do. He didn't move to hide it. Didn't seem concerned that I'd noticed. So you could call for help. Real help. A tow truck. Police. Anyone. I could. He picked it up, turned it over in his hand like he was examining it for the first time. The screen lit up at his touch. Full bars. Full battery. But I won't. Why not? Because I'm not interested in helping you get home. He said it simply, matter-of-factly, the way you tell someone you don't like coffee or you're allergic to shellfish. A statement of preference, not negotiable. The words hung there, honest, brutal, final. I swallowed hard, tried a different angle. Keep him talking, keep him engaged. People who are talking aren't acting. People know where I am. I sent a location pin before you showed up. It went through. My roommate has it. No, you didn't. You tried. I watched you through your back window. I saw your screen. The message didn't send. The little circle just kept spinning. I know what that looks like. I've seen it before. The admission sent ice down my spine. He'd been watching me.
Waiting. Timing his approach. My roommate will call the police when I don't show up, I continued, forcing confidence into my voice. They'll track my phone, they'll bing the towers, they'll find me. Maybe, he shrugged, unbothered. Maybe not. Lot of snow out here, easy to lose things. Trucks slide off roads all the time in weather like this. Sometimes they're not found until spring. Thaw reveals all kinds of things. They'll find this truck. Someone will have seen it. Cameras on the highway, traffic sensors, someone will remember. Seen what? A utility truck on a county road during a blizzard? There's a dozen of those out tonight. More. And I'm not on any highway cameras. I know which roads have them. I'm careful. Very careful. He leaned closer. I could smell coffee on his breath. Something mint. You're alone. I made sure of that. I watched 3 other cars pass you before I stopped. I waited until the road was clear, until the timing was right. This isn't impulse. This is patience. The heater kept blasting. The cab felt too hot now, airless, suffocating. I needed out. But the doors were locked, and he was between me and the keys, and I was running out of moves. Think. Think like you're in an exam room with a 90-pound dog that's decided you're the threat. You don't have a leash, you don't have backup. What do? You use what you have. You create leverage where there isn't any. Then I remembered something. The clinic. The tools I carried. The instincts I'd developed working with animals that could hurt me if I made one wrong move. I work with teeth and claws every day. I've been bitten, scratched, lunged at. I know how to read intent. I know how to recognize the moment before violence. And I know how to use confidence as a weapon. I stopped shaking, straightened in my seat, looked him directly in the eye. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, my voice level. "You're going to unlock the doors, you're going to let me out, and you're going to drive away." He blinked. For the first time, he looked surprised. "Or what?" "Or I'm going to make this very, very difficult for you. You're locked in a truck in the middle of a blizzard with me."
You don't have leverage. Yes, I do. I pulled my bag into my lap, unzipped it slowly, reached inside. My fingers closed around the small canister I always carried. Pepper spray, veterinary grade, stronger than civilian stuff. I pulled it out, held it up. "This is capsaicin gel," I said. "It's what we use on aggressive animals. If I spray this in an enclosed space like this cab, we're both going to have a very bad time. But I know what it feels like. I've been exposed during training. I can handle it. Can you?" His jaw tightened. "You wouldn't. Try me." We stared at each other. The wind howled outside. Snow piled higher on the windshield. "You'll hurt yourself too," he said. "I don't care." Another beat. Then his hand moved toward his pocket, toward the keys. But he didn't pull out the keys. His hand went to his other pocket instead. When it emerged, it held a knife. Not large, a folding blade, maybe 3 inches. Worn wooden handle, scratched mail. It looked used, practical, the kind of tool someone carries for years. He didn't brandish it dramatically. He just held it loosely, comfortably, the blade resting against his palm. "Put the spray down," he said quietly. His voice hadn't changed, still calm, still reasonable. My heart slammed against my ribs so hard I could feel it in my throat. This was it, the moment, the fulcrum where everything could tip one way or another. I had seconds to decide, maybe less. I didn't put the spray down. My thumb found the trigger guard, flipped the safety mechanism. The tiny click was loud in the enclosed space, and my voice was steadier than I expected. "I will empty this entire canister into your face. You'll be blind and choking. You won't be able to see to drive. You'll crash this truck or stumble out into the snow. Either way, you lose. Either way, this ends badly for you. So do you." He tilted the knife slightly, light catching the edge. "You think you can spray me before I reach you? You think you're fast enough? Maybe not. But I'll spray anyway. Even if you cut me, I'll spray. Even if I'm hurt, I'll spray. And then we're both compromised."
The difference is, I'm willing to hurt to get out. Are you willing to hurt to keep me? His knuckles whitened slightly on the knife handle. I saw the calculation happening behind his eyes. Risk assessment, cost-benefit analysis. He'd been in control until now, certain, but I'd introduced a variable he hadn't accounted for. Resistance. Real resistance. Not panic, not pleading, just cold willingness to cause mutual harm. Then I did something I'd learned from cornered animals, something I'd seen work with dogs backed into corners, cats facing down threats twice their size. I made myself bigger, louder. I removed the option of easy submission. I screamed. Not words, not help or no or anything articulable. Just sound. Raw, piercing, sustained. The kind of scream that fills every available space, that vibrates in your skull, that triggers ancient alarms deep in the brainstem. The kind that says fight or flight or freeze, but something has to happen now. He flinched, actually flinched. His hand jerked reflexively toward his ear, and in that half-second of involuntary response, I sprayed him. Not in the face. I knew better. If I hit his eyes and he went wild, I'd never get the door open. I sprayed his hand, the one holding the knife. Orange gel splattered across his fingers, his wrist, the blade. He jerked back, swearing, and the knife clattered to the floor near his feet. I lunged for the lock, fingers scrabbling at the mechanism, flipped it manually, shoved the door open with my shoulder. Cold and snow exploded inward like a living thing. Wind tore at my hair. I threw myself out into the storm, not gracefully, not carefully, just out. I had to be out. I hit the ground hard, snow up to my knees. The cold was instant and absolute. I didn't look back. I ran toward my truck, stumbling, boots sinking with every step. Behind me, I heard his door slam open, heard him shouting, the words lost in the wind. I risked a glance back. He was out of the cab, one hand over his eyes, the other reaching blindly. I reached my truck, yanked the door open. The keys were still in the ignition where I'd left them.
I turned the engine over. It coughed once, twice. Started. The tires spun uselessly in the ditch.
I threw it in reverse, then forward, rocking it. Nothing. Still stuck. In the rearview mirror, I saw him moving toward me, slowly, still partially blinded but coming. I laid on the horn. 3 long blasts. The sound cut through the storm, sharp and desperate. I did it again and again. He stopped, stood there in the snow, swaying slightly. Then he turned and stumbled back toward his truck. The engine roared to life. The amber lights spun. He backed up, pulled around, and drove past me without stopping. His headlights swept over my truck once, then disappeared into the white. I sat there shaking violently, horn silent now, breath coming in ragged gasps. I didn't know if he was really gone or just repositioning. I tried my phone again. Still no signal. I ran the engine for heat, turned it off to save gas. Ran it again. The snow kept falling. Time became meaningless. Every set of distant lights sent adrenaline spiking through me. Was it him? Was it help? I locked the doors, kept the pepper spray in my lap, watched the mirrors. At some point, I started crying. Not sobbing, just silent tears running down my face while I sat there in the dark. The fear had caught up to me, the understanding of what almost happened, what could still happen. I tried the phone every 10 minutes. Nothing. The battery was draining. I turned it off to preserve what was left. The wind rattled the truck. Snow covered the windshield completely. I was entombed. Then, finally, lights. Real ones this time. White and red, flashing in sequence. I heard an engine, different from his, deeper. I cracked the window, looked out. A massive vehicle. An actual county plow, logo visible on the door. I started crying again. Relief this time. The driver was older, 60s maybe, with a thick gray beard and kind eyes. He stayed outside while we talked through the window. Professional, respectful. "You the one who called in?" I tried. It didn't go through. Dispatcher got a ping from his area. "Welfare check. You been here long?" "Hours." He radioed something, then looked back at me.
You hurt? No. But someone stopped earlier. He tried to... I couldn't finish. My voice broke. His expression hardened. What'd he look like? I described the truck, the generic utility jacket, the man's face as best I could remember. He wrote it down. "We'll get it reported. Right now, let's get you out of here." He hooked a winch line to my front axle and pulled me out in under 5 minutes. The truck lurched, tires found traction, and suddenly I was free. "Follow me," he said. "I'll lead you to the main road. You good to drive?" I nodded. I wasn't, but I wanted out of there more than anything. He led me slowly through the storm, his plow clearing a path. At the junction, he waved me off toward town. I drove 20 miles under the speed limit, hands locked on the wheel, checking the mirrors every few seconds. When I pulled into my apartment complex, I sat in the parking lot with the engine running for 15 minutes before I could make myself get out. My roommate met me at the door before I could get my key in the lock. She'd heard the truck, been waiting, watching through the window. When she saw my face, something in her expression collapsed from worry into something deeper. She didn't ask if I was okay. The answer was obvious. She just pulled me inside and locked the door behind us. I told her everything. The words came out flat, mechanical, like I was reciting a case history at work. Patient presented with, symptoms included, treatment administered. She listened without interrupting, her hand gripping mine so tight I could feel her pulse through her fingers. When I finished, she wanted to call the police immediately. I told her the plow driver already had. She didn't accept that. She called anyway. 2 officers arrived 40 minutes later, a man and a woman, both maybe in their 40s, snow still melting on their shoulders. They took my statement at the kitchen table, asked me to describe the truck again, the man, every detail I could remember. The woman officer typed everything into a tablet. The male officer took notes by hand, his writing cramped and precise.
"Can you describe any identifying features on the vehicle?" the woman asked. "Plates, dents, stickers, company markings?" "No plates that I saw, no markings. It looked like a utility truck, but generic, the kind you could buy at an auction." "What about him? Scars, tattoos, distinctive features?" "Plain, forgettable. That's what made it worse. He looked like anyone." I closed my eyes, tried to pull up the memory. Maybe 5'10", brown hair, no facial hair, no glasses, nothing you'd remember. They wrote it down, asked more questions. What time did this happen? Which mile marker was I near? What exact words did he use? Did he assault you physically? Did he touch you? He didn't get the chance. But did he make physical contact? Did he threaten you verbally with specific harm?
I thought about how to answer that. He said I wasn't going anywhere. He said I was alone and he'd made sure of that. He said he'd watched other cars pass before he stopped. He said this isn't impulse, this is patience. Is that a threat? They exchanged a glance. It's concerning language, the female officer said carefully, but legally it's ambiguous. He pulled a knife after you threatened him with pepper spray. I threatened him because he locked me in his truck, because he wouldn't let me leave. We understand, the male officer said. His tone was sympathetic, but I could hear the unspoken caveat. Understanding and actionable evidence were different things. We'll file a report. We'll look for vehicles matching that description. But in a blizzard, on a rural road, with no witnesses and no physical evidence, no plates, no company records, it's going to be difficult. They gave me a case number on a small business card, told me to call if I remembered anything else, any detail, no matter how small. They asked if I wanted to go to the hospital. I said no. They asked if I had someone to stay with me tonight. My roommate answered before I could. Then they left. We sat in the living room afterward, neither of us speaking. The apartment felt too quiet, too warm. I couldn't stop shaking.
My roommate wrapped me in a blanket, made tea I couldn't taste, turned on the television for background noise I couldn't process. I kept seeing his face, the calm expression, the certainty in his voice, the way he'd held that knife like it was an extension of his hand, the way he'd watched me like I was something he'd already caught. That night I didn't sleep. I sat in my room with the door locked, lights on, listening to every sound in the building, every footstep in the hall, every door closing, every car passing outside. When morning finally came, gray and cold through my window, I'd made a decision. I was alive. I'd gotten out, and I was going to stay out. That was 5 years ago. I still live in Bemidji. I still work at the clinic, but I don't drive County Road 7 anymore. I take the long way, the highway, even when it adds 30 minutes. I check weather obsessively now. If there's even a hint of snow, I leave early or I don't go. I keep my phone charged. I have a satellite communicator in my truck, flares, a better emergency kit. But the real change is internal. I don't trust help anymore, not automatically, not the way I used to. When someone offers assistance, I look for the details that don't fit, the logo that's not quite right, the policy that sounds official but isn't. People ask why I got in his truck. Because it looked like help. Because winter makes you vulnerable. Because I'd been taught my whole life that utility workers, first responders, people in uniforms were safe. But he wasn't there to help. He was there to hunt. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't had that pepper spray, if I hadn't worked with animals, learned to read intent, to act decisively in dangerous situations. Sometimes I wonder if he's still out there, driving those roads, looking for someone else stuck in the snow. I reported it. I did everything right, but he was never found. No arrests, no leads, just my story and a case file somewhere gathering dust. So now I tell people, trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. And if someone locks you in, you fought your way out, whatever it takes. Because I'm still here.
I'm still alive, and that's what matters.